The longship cuts through morning mist like a blade through silk. Oars slice water in perfect rhythm, while bearded warriors scan distant shores for their next target. This scene has captured imaginations for centuries. But how much do you really know about the people behind these legendary raids? The Vikings weren't just brutal raiders emerging from frozen wastelands. They were explorers, traders, craftsmen, and storytellers who shaped medieval Europe in ways most people never realize. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal 100 fascinating facts about Viking civilization that will completely change how you see these legendary Norsemen, from their surprising hygiene habits to their democratic assemblies, from their female warriors to their advanced navigation techniques. These facts will shatter every stereotype you thought you knew about Viking culture. Some of these revelations will shock you, others will make you laugh, and a few might even make you wish you'd lived alongside these remarkable people. But before we dive into this incredible journey through Viking history, let me tell you why these facts matter today. Modern DNA studies reveal that millions of people across Europe and North America carry Viking genetic markers. Their democratic traditions influenced modern parliamentary systems. Their trading networks connected continents centuries before globalization became a buzzword. Understanding Vikings means understanding the roots of our own civilization. What makes this exploration even more exciting is how recent archaeological discoveries keep rewriting Viking history. Just last year, researchers uncovered evidence that completely overturned beliefs scholars held for decades. Metal detectorists in Denmark found hoards that revealed new trading partnerships. Excavations in Iceland uncovered settlement patterns nobody expected. Each discovery adds another piece to this magnificent puzzle. I've spent months researching primary sources, archaeological reports, and cutting-edge genetic studies to bring you the most accurate and surprising Viking facts available. These aren't the sanitized museum versions or Hollywood fantasies. These are the real stories of real people who lived extraordinary lives in extraordinary times. So grab your drinking horn, settle in by the fire, and prepare to meet the Vikings as they truly were. Here are 100 facts that will revolutionize everything you thought you knew about these legendary people. Fact number 1. Vikings didn't actually wear horned helmets. This iconic image comes from 19th century Romantic art and Wagner's operas, not historical evidence. Archaeological finds show Viking helmets were simple iron caps designed for protection, not intimidation. Only one complete Viking helmet has ever been discovered, found in Norway and completely horn-free. Fact number 2. The word Viking doesn't refer to all Scandinavians. It comes from the Old Norse word meaning to go raiding or pirating. Most Scandinavians during the Viking Age were farmers, craftsmen, and traders who never went raiding. Viking was actually a job description, not an ethnic identity. Fact number 3. Vikings were obsessed with personal hygiene. Archaeological evidence shows they bathed weekly, bleached their beards, and used tweezers to pluck unwanted hair. They valued cleanliness so much that Saturday was called washing day in Old Norse. This contradicts the dirty barbarian stereotype completely. Fact number 4. Viking women enjoyed remarkable freedom compared to other medieval societies. They could own property, request divorces, and serve as priestesses. Some even became successful merchants, traveling across Europe to conduct business independently of their husbands or fathers. Fact number 5. The Viking Age lasted roughly from 793 to 1066 CE. It began with the raid on Lindisfarne Monastery and ended with the Norman conquest of England. This represents just over 2.5 centuries of Scandinavian expansion and exploration. Fact number 6. Vikings reached North America 500 years before Columbus. Leif Erikson established settlements in Newfoundland around 1000 CE. Archaeological evidence at Lanceau Meadows confirms Norse presence in the New World centuries before other Europeans arrived. Fact number 7. Runes weren't just an alphabet but a magical system. Vikings believed runes possessed supernatural powers and could influence fate. They carved runes on weapons, jewelry, and stones to invoke protection, victory, or curses upon enemies. Fact number 8. The largest Viking ship ever found measured over 100 feet long. The Roskilde 6 ship could carry 100 warriors and represented the pinnacle of medieval shipbuilding technology. These vessels were engineering marvels that enabled Viking expansion across oceans. Fact number 9. Vikings established the world's first parliament in Iceland. The Althing, founded in 930 CE, brought together representatives from across the island to settle disputes and make laws. This democratic institution predates most European parliaments by centuries. Fact number 10. Berserkers were real Viking warriors who fought in trance-like states. They believed they channeled the spirits of bears or wolves during battle. Modern theories suggest they may have used psychoactive substances or suffered from psychological conditions that enhanced their ferocity. Fact number 11. Vikings traded traded extensively with the Islamic world. Arabic silver coins have been found throughout Scandinavia, proving commercial relationships stretched from Greenland to Constantinople. Vikings sold furs, amber and slaves in exchange for silver, silk, and spices. Fact number 12. The average Viking lived only to about 40 years old. Disease, warfare, and harsh living conditions kept life expectancy low. However, those who survived childhood had decent chances of reaching middle age if they avoided violence. Fact number 13. Vikings invented skiing as both transportation and recreation. Archaeological evidence shows Scandinavians used skis over 4,000 years ago. They even worshipped Allah, a god specifically associated with skiing and winter sports. Fact number 14. Viking longships could sail in just 3 feet of water. This shallow draft allowed them to navigate rivers deep into continental Europe, surprising victims who thought water barriers would protect them. Rivers became highways for Viking expansion. Fact number 15. The Vikings had a sophisticated legal system with detailed codes. The Graga's laws of Iceland filled multiple volumes and covered everything from property disputes to murder penalties. Their legal traditions influenced Scandinavian law for centuries. Fact number 16. Viking warriors weren't necessarily large men. Skeletal remains suggest average heights around 5 feet 6 inches for men. Their reputation for ferocity came from skill, tactics, and psychological warfare rather than physical size. Fact number 17. Vikings discovered and settled Greenland despite its misleading name. Eric the Red named it Greenland as a marketing ploy to attract settlers. The southern regions actually supported farming communities for several centuries before climate change forced abandonment. Fact number 18. The Viking compass was a crystal called a sunstone. This calcite crystal could locate the sun even through clouds, enabling navigation during overcast conditions. Recent experiments prove these crystals work exactly as saga descriptions claimed. Fact number 19. Vikings practiced human sacrifice during important ceremonies. Archaeological evidence from sites like Trelleborg shows ritual killings accompanied major religious festivals. These sacrifices were believed necessary to ensure divine favor and community prosperity. Fact number 20. The mighty Thor's hammer pendants were Viking religious symbols. Thousands have been found across Scandinavia, worn as protection amulets. They became especially popular as Christianity spread, representing resistance to the new faith. Fact number 21. Vikings invented ice skating using animal bones. They attached polished leg bones from horses and cattle to their boots, creating the first ice skates. This innovation allowed winter travel across frozen lakes and rivers. Fact number 22. The Viking diet included whale meat and seal blubber. These marine mammals provided essential fats and proteins during harsh winters. Whaling required sophisticated techniques and equipment that Vikings developed over generations. Fact number 23. Vikings had a complex calendar system based on lunar months. They divided the year into winter and summer seasons, each containing 6 months. Their calendar required regular adjustments to stay synchronized with seasonal changes. Fact number 24. The famous Viking blood eagle execution probably never happened. This gruesome ritual described in later sagas likely represents literary exaggeration rather than historical practice. Modern scholars question whether Vikings actually performed such extreme tortures. Fact number 25. Vikings established Dublin as Ireland's first major city. They founded it as a trading post in 841 CE, and it quickly became a center for commerce and slave trading. The name Dublin comes from the Irish words for black pool. Fact number 26. Viking women could become vulvas, powerful sorceresses and seers. These women traveled between communities, performing magical rituals and predicting the future. They commanded great respect and fear throughout Viking society. Fact number 27. The Vikings developed advanced metalworking techniques. They created pattern-welded swords with distinctive wavy designs that were both beautiful and deadly. Their blacksmiths were considered almost magical figures in society. Fact number 28. Vikings buried their dead in ships to carry them to the afterlife. These ship burials required enormous resources and were reserved for the wealthy and powerful. The ships were often burned or buried under massive earthen mounds. Fact number 29. The Viking game of Hnefatafl was incredibly popular across Scandinavia. This strategic board game simulated battles between unequal forces. Archaeological finds show game pieces in graves, suggesting Vikings expected to play in the afterlife. Fact number 30. Vikings used a base 12 counting system instead of base 10. This duodecimal system influenced their measurements and monetary calculations. Traces of this system survive in modern expressions like dozen and gross. The story of the Vikings continues to unfold with each new archaeological discovery and historical analysis. These 30 facts represent just the beginning of our journey through 100 revelations about these extraordinary people. From their innovative technology to their complex social structures, From their spiritual beliefs to their global connections, the Vikings created a civilization far more sophisticated than most people imagine. But we've only scratched the surface of their remarkable world. The facts ahead will reveal even more surprising truths about Viking exploration, their treatment of women, their democratic innovations, and the lasting impact they made on world history. Each revelation builds our understanding of how these northern peoples influenced the development of modern civilization in ways that continue echoing today. The deeper we venture into Viking civilization, the more their true complexity emerges from beneath centuries of misconception and myth. Fact number 31. Vikings practiced democracy long before most of Europe embraced the concept. Local assemblies called things allowed free men to vote on laws, settle disputes, and elect leaders. Women could attend these gatherings and influence decisions through their male relatives, wielding indirect but significant political power. Fact number 32. The Vikings invented the first stock market system. Merchants would pool resources for trading expeditions, sharing both profits and losses among investors. This early form of capitalism enabled larger ventures than individual traders could finance alone, revolutionizing medieval commerce. Fact number 33. Viking children started weapons training at age 7. Boys learned swordplay and archery while girls practiced with knives and spears. This early military education created a warrior culture where combat skills were considered essential life abilities, not specialized military knowledge. Fact number 34. The Vikings had an advanced understanding of astronomy. They could navigate by stars, predict eclipses, and track seasonal changes with remarkable precision. Their knowledge rivaled that of contemporary Islamic scholars and Chinese astronomers. Fact number 35. Vikings invented the first effective preservation methods for meat and fish. They developed smoking, salting, and fermentation techniques that kept food edible for months during long voyages. These innovations enabled their far-reaching exploration and trading expeditions. Fact number 36. The Viking alphabet contained only 16 letters. Their runic system was designed for carving into wood and stone rather than writing on parchment. Each rune represented both a sound and a concept, making their writing system incredibly efficient. Fact number 37. Vikings established the first international banking system. Merchants could deposit silver in one city and withdraw equivalent value in another, using a network of trusted traders. This system facilitated commerce across vast distances without transporting heavy coins. Fact number 38. The famous Viking longboats were actually just one type of ship they built. Vikings constructed cargo vessels, fishing boats, and rivercraft, each designed for specific purposes. Their shipbuilding expertise produced the most advanced vessels of their era. Fact number 39. Vikings practiced sophisticated agriculture despite harsh climates. They developed crop rotation systems, improved plowing techniques, and created efficient farming tools. Their agricultural innovations supported growing populations across Scandinavia. Fact number 40. The Viking social structure included three main classes: jarls, carls, and thralls. Jarls were nobles, carls were free farmers and craftsmen, and thralls were slaves. Social mobility existed, with successful carls sometimes achieving jarl status through wealth or military service. Fact number 41. Vikings had detailed building codes for their settlements. Archaeological evidence shows standardized construction methods, fire prevention measures, and urban planning concepts. Their towns were far more organized than medieval stereotypes suggest. Fact number 42. The Viking pantheon included over 40 gods and goddesses. Beyond famous figures like Odin and Thor, they worshipped deities governing agriculture, hunting, fertility, and craftsmanship. Their religious system reflected the complexity of their daily lives. Fact number 43. Vikings invented the first efficient heating systems for northern climates. They developed underfloor heating using heated stones and sophisticated fireplace designs that maximized warmth while minimizing fuel consumption. These innovations made life comfortable in harsh winters. Fact number 44. The Viking language evolved into modern Scandinavian languages. Old Norse provided the foundation for Danish, Norwegian, Swedish, and Icelandic. Many English words also derive from Viking vocabulary, introduced during their occupation of Britain. Fact number 45. Vikings established trade routes that connected three continents. Their networks linked Greenland to Constantinople, creating the medieval world's most extensive commercial system. Goods traveled thousands of miles through Viking trading partnerships. Fact number 46. The Viking legal system recognized women's property rights centuries before other European societies. Women could inherit land, own businesses, and control their dowries independently. Divorce laws protected women's economic interests remarkably well for medieval times. Fact number 47. Vikings developed advanced medical practices, including surgical procedures. Archaeological evidence shows successful bone setting, wound treatment, and even primitive brain surgery. Their medical knowledge combined practical experience with magical beliefs. Fact number 48. The Viking calendar included detailed weather prediction systems. They tracked atmospheric patterns, animal behavior, and natural signs to forecast conditions months in advance. This knowledge was crucial for planning voyages and agricultural activities. Fact number 49. Vikings created the first comprehensive maps of northern Atlantic waters. Their navigation charts included current patterns, wind directions, and landmark references. These maps enabled consistent, successful voyages across dangerous waters. Fact number 50. The Viking Age produced remarkable artistic achievements. Their metalwork, wood carving, and textile production reached sophisticated levels of craftsmanship. Viking art influenced European artistic development for centuries after their political decline. Fact number 51. Vikings established universities and centers of learning. Iceland's scholarly traditions preserved classical literature and developed new forms of historical writing. The sagas represent some of medieval Europe's most sophisticated literary achievements. Fact number 52. The Viking military employed advanced tactical formations. Their shield walls, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated attacks demonstrated strategic thinking beyond simple berserker charges. Professional military leadership guided their most successful campaigns. Fact number 53. Vikings practiced environmental conservation to maintain resources. They managed forests sustainably, rotated grazing lands, and protected breeding grounds for fish and game. Their survival depended on understanding ecological balance. Fact number 54. The Viking economy included sophisticated credit and lending systems. Merchants offered loans for equipment purchases, land acquisition, and business ventures. Interest rates and payment terms were regulated by community standards. Fact number 55. Vikings developed the first international postal system. Messages traveled along established trade routes using trusted carriers who moved between settlements. This communication network enabled coordination across vast distances. Fact number 56. The Viking justice system included rehabilitation programs for criminals. Rather than simply punishing offenders, communities worked to reintegrate wrongdoers through supervised labor and community service. This approach reflected their practical understanding of social dynamics. Fact number 57. Vikings invented ice preservation techniques for food storage. They harvested winter ice and stored it in insulated buildings, creating refrigeration systems that kept food fresh through summer months. This technology supported larger settlements and longer voyages. Fact number 58. The Viking educational system taught both practical and intellectual skills. Children learned reading, mathematics, history, and poetry alongside hunting, farming, and craftsmanship. Their culture valued both mental and physical capabilities. Fact number 59. Vikings established diplomatic protocols for international relations. They negotiated treaties, exchanged ambassadors, and maintained peaceful relationships with many neighbors. Warfare was just one tool in their sophisticated foreign policy. Fact number 60. The Viking exploration of North America included attempts at permanent colonization. They brought livestock, seeds, and tools to establish self-sufficient settlements. Only conflicts with indigenous peoples prevented successful long-term colonies. These 60 facts reveal Vikings as master innovators who created solutions to challenges that wouldn't be matched for centuries. Their democratic institutions, commercial networks, and technological achievements laid foundations for modern civilization. But their story grows even more fascinating as we explore their daily lives, their spiritual beliefs, and their remarkable women who wielded power in ways that would shock medieval Europe. The remaining 40 facts will complete our journey through this extraordinary civilization that continues influencing our world today. Their achievements in exploration and innovation pale compared to the shocking truths about their daily lives and social customs that historians are only now beginning to understand. Fact number 61. Vikings practiced dental hygiene using primitive toothbrushes made from twigs. Archaeological examination of Viking skulls shows surprisingly healthy teeth for medieval people. They chewed on birch bark and used saltwater rinses to prevent decay, demonstrating medical knowledge that surpassed most contemporary cultures. Fact number 62. The Viking concept of time differed radically from modern understanding. They measured seasons by agricultural activities rather than calendar months. Winter began when livestock were brought inside, and summer started when ships could safely sail. This practical approach to timekeeping reflected their deep connection to natural cycles. Fact number 63. Vikings developed sophisticated insurance systems for maritime ventures. Ship owners could purchase protection against storms, piracy, and equipment loss. These early insurance contracts distributed risk among multiple parties, enabling more ambitious trading expeditions than individual merchants could afford. Fact number 64. The Viking diet included over 50 varieties of fish and seafood. They consumed everything from salmon and cod to seal and whale meat. Their fishing techniques included deep water methods using weighted nets and specialized hooks that modern fishermen still recognize as effective designs. Fact number 65. Vikings practiced advanced veterinary medicine on their animals. They performed surgical procedures on horses, treated cattle diseases with herbal remedies, and maintained detailed breeding records. Livestock represented enormous wealth, making veterinary knowledge economically crucial for successful farming. Fact number 66. The Viking beauty standard emphasized physical strength over delicate features. Both men and women admired muscular builds, scarred hands from honest labor, and weathered skin from outdoor work. This aesthetic reflected their harsh environment, where physical capability determined survival. Fact number 67. Vikings created the first organized fire departments in medieval Europe. Towns maintained crews of firefighters equipped with leather buckets, hooks, and axes. These teams could respond quickly to blazes that threatened entire settlements built primarily from wood and thatch. Fact number 68. The Viking funeral system included elaborate ceremonies lasting up to 10 days. Mourning rituals involved feasting, storytelling, and competitive games celebrating the deceased's life. These extended observances strengthened community bonds while honoring the dead appropriately. Fact number 69. Vikings invented the first waterproof clothing using seal and fish oils. They treated leather and wool with these substances to create garments that shed rain and sea spray. This technology enabled their maritime adventures in harsh Atlantic conditions. Fact number 70. The Viking education system included mandatory swimming instruction for all children. Living surrounded by water made swimming essential for survival. Children who couldn't swim by age 10 faced social stigma and limited career opportunities in their maritime culture. Fact number 71. Vikings developed sophisticated mathematical concepts, including early forms of algebra. Their merchants needed complex calculations for currency exchanges, profit sharing, and inventory management. Archaeological evidence shows counting tokens and calculation boards throughout Viking settlements. Fact number 72. The Viking legal code prohibited domestic violence against women and children. Men who abused family members faced substantial fines and social ostracism. These protections existed centuries before similar laws appeared in other European societies. Fact number 73. Vikings practiced sustainable forestry management to preserve shipbuilding materials. They planted trees specifically for future vessel construction and protected old-growth forests through community regulations. Their understanding of forest ecology enabled continued maritime expansion. Fact number 74. The Viking postal system included coded messages for sensitive information. Traders developed symbolic systems to communicate prices, dangers, and opportunities without revealing details to competitors. These early encryption methods protected valuable commercial intelligence. Fact number 75. Vikings established the first organized mining operations in Scandinavia. They extracted iron, silver, and copper using advanced techniques including underground tunnels and water-powered equipment. Mining communities developed specialized tools and safety procedures. Fact number 76. The Viking textile industry produced fabrics that rivaled Byzantine silk in quality. Their wool processing techniques created waterproof, windproof materials perfect for northern climates. Viking textiles were traded throughout Europe as luxury goods. Fact number 77. Vikings practiced advanced animal husbandry, including selective breeding programs. They developed larger horses, more productive cattle, and hardier sheep through careful genetic management. Their livestock improvements supported growing populations across harsh territories. Fact number 78. The Viking transportation system included the first organized courier services. Professional messengers carried goods and information along established routes connecting major settlements. These services operated year-round using skis, boats, and horse relays. Fact number 79. Vikings invented ice fishing techniques that modern anglers still use today. They developed specialized equipment for winter fishing, including heated shelters and effective bait systems. Ice fishing provided crucial protein during long northern winters. Fact number 80. The Viking political system included women's councils that advised male leaders. These assemblies discussed community issues and influenced major decisions through informal but powerful networks. Women's political participation exceeded that found in most medieval societies. Fact number 81. Vikings created the first international standardized currency system. Their silver arm rings and hack silver functioned across multiple kingdoms with recognized weight and purity standards. This monetary system facilitated trade throughout their vast commercial networks. Fact number 82. The Viking construction industry used advanced engineering principles for large buildings. Their great halls required sophisticated knowledge of load-bearing, foundation design, and weather resistance. Archaeological evidence shows construction techniques that wouldn't be matched for centuries. Fact number 83. Vikings developed comprehensive weather forecasting methods using natural indicators. They tracked cloud formations, wind patterns, animal behavior, and atmospheric pressure changes to predict storms days in advance. This knowledge was literally life or death for maritime expeditions. Fact number 84. The Viking healthcare system included specialized practitioners for different medical conditions. They had bone setters, herbalists, midwives, and wound specialists who traveled between communities providing professional medical services. This specialization created remarkably effective healthcare for their era. Fact number 85. Vikings practiced advanced food preservation that enabled year-long storage. Their fermentation techniques created foods that remained nutritious and safe through multiple seasons. These methods supported permanent settlements in regions with harsh winters. Fact number 86. The Viking communication system included sophisticated signal networks using fires and flags. Messages could travel hundreds of miles within days using relay stations positioned on hilltops and islands. This system enabled rapid coordination across their territories. Fact number 87. Vikings developed the first organized waste management systems in Northern Europe. They created designated disposal areas, composting systems, and sewage handling that prevented disease outbreaks in crowded settlements. Their sanitation knowledge surpassed most medieval cities. Fact number 88. The Viking military included specialized units for different combat situations. They had siege specialists, naval fighters, cavalry units, and infantry formations trained for specific tactical roles. This military organization enabled their successful campaigns across Europe. Fact number 89. Vikings invented advanced rope and knot systems for maritime use. Their knots were designed for specific purposes, including quick release under pressure and maximum holding strength in storms. Modern sailors still use many Viking knot techniques. Fact number 90. The Viking agricultural system included crop varieties specifically developed for northern climates. They bred grains that could mature in short growing seasons and vegetables that stored well through winter. These agricultural innovations supported expanding populations. Fact number 91. Vikings established the first professional guild systems for skilled craftsmen. Blacksmiths, shipwrights, and jewelers formed organized associations that regulated training, quality standards, and pricing. These guilds protected trade secrets while ensuring consistent craftsmanship across different settlements. Fact number 92. The Viking entertainment industry included traveling performers who moved between communities. Professional storytellers, musicians, and acrobats provided entertainment during festivals and long winter months. These performers preserved cultural traditions while spreading news and gossip across vast distances. Fact number 93. Vikings developed sophisticated brewing techniques that produced multiple types of alcoholic beverages. They fermented honey into mead, grains into ale, and fruits into wine using controlled processes that ensured consistent quality. Their brewing knowledge included flavoring methods using herbs and spices. Fact number 94. The Viking childcare system included communal responsibility for orphaned children. Communities automatically absorbed children who lost parents, ensuring no child faced abandonment or starvation. This social safety net reflected their understanding that community survival depended on protecting all members. Fact number 95. Vikings practiced advanced metallurgy, including techniques for creating steel alloys. Their weaponsmiths understood how carbon content affected blade quality and developed methods for achieving optimal hardness and flexibility. These metallurgical skills produced superior weapons and tools. Fact number 96. The Viking transportation network included the first organized road maintenance systems. Communities collaborated to maintain overland routes, clearing obstacles, and repairing bridges seasonally. These road systems enabled efficient movement of goods and people across challenging terrain. Fact number 97. Vikings invented specialized fishing equipment that revolutionized marine food harvesting. Their nets, hooks, and traps were designed for specific fish species and water conditions. Archaeological finds show fishing gear so advanced that modern versions differ only in materials used. Fact number 98. The Viking social welfare system included support for disabled community members. People with physical limitations received community assistance and were assigned work suitable to their capabilities. This inclusive approach ensured everyone contributed to society, regardless of physical condition. Fact number 99. Vikings developed comprehensive disaster response systems for natural emergencies. They maintained emergency food supplies, evacuation procedures, and mutual aid agreements between communities. These preparations enabled survival through volcanic eruptions, harsh winters, and crop failures. Fact number 100. The Viking legacy continues influencing modern society in countless ways most people never recognize. Their democratic traditions shaped parliamentary systems, their commercial innovations laid foundations for international banking, their exploration spirit inspired centuries of discovery, their legal concepts influenced modern justice systems. Their artistic achievements continue inspiring contemporary creators, but perhaps their greatest legacy lies in their fundamental approach to life itself. Vikings understood that survival required community cooperation, individual excellence, and constant adaptation to changing circumstances. They built societies that valued both personal achievement and collective responsibility. They created cultures that celebrated both physical courage and intellectual accomplishment. Modern genetic studies reveal that Viking influence extends far beyond historical records. Millions of people across Europe, North America, and other regions carry genetic markers tracing back to Viking populations. Their biological legacy mingles with their cultural contributions to create an ongoing influence that most people never realize they carry. The archaeological record continues revealing new aspects of Viking civilization that challenge every preconception about medieval life. Each excavation uncovers evidence of sophistication that historians barely suspected existed. Each genetic study reveals population movements and cultural exchanges that written records never mentioned. Each technological analysis shows innovations that wouldn't be matched for centuries. What emerges from this evidence is a portrait of people far more complex, creative, and accomplished than popular culture ever imagined. These weren't simple raiders emerging from frozen wastelands to terrorize civilized Europe. They were master innovators who created solutions to challenges that their contemporaries couldn't even recognize existed. Their democratic institutions provided frameworks for political participation that wouldn't appear elsewhere for centuries. Their commercial networks created economic systems that connected continents in ways that wouldn't be matched until the modern era. Their exploration achievements opened new worlds that expanded human knowledge of geography, navigation, and cultural diversity. Their social systems included protections for women, children, and vulnerable populations that surpassed anything available in contemporary societies. Their legal codes established principles of justice that influenced European law development for generations. Their educational approaches created literate populations capable of producing some of medieval literature's greatest achievements. Their technological innovations solved practical problems with ingenuity that modern engineers still admire. Their agricultural methods sustained populations in environments where survival seemed impossible. Their medical knowledge prevented and treated conditions that devastated other medieval populations. Their artistic achievements created beauty that continues inspiring contemporary creators. Their literary traditions preserved knowledge and stories that would otherwise have vanished completely. Their cultural values emphasized excellence, courage, and community responsibility in ways that remain relevant today. Understanding Vikings means understanding the roots of qualities that define modern civilization at its best. Their commitment to exploration led to geographical discoveries that changed world history. Their democratic innovations provided models for political systems that protect individual rights while maintaining community cohesion. Their commercial creativity established economic principles that enable international trade and cooperation. Their legal wisdom created justice systems that balance punishment with rehabilitation. Their social awareness produced communities that cared for all members regardless of individual circumstances. The 100 facts we've explored together represent just the beginning of Viking studies that continue revealing new dimensions of their remarkable civilization. Each archaeological season brings fresh discoveries that add complexity to our understanding. Each genetic analysis reveals population movements and cultural exchanges that rewrite historical narratives. Each scholarly investigation uncovers evidence that challenges assumptions about medieval life and capabilities. The Vikings created a civilization that combined practical innovation with cultural sophistication in ways that their contemporaries couldn't match and that modern societies still struggle to achieve. Their story reminds us that human creativity and cooperation can overcome seemingly impossible challenges. Their achievements demonstrate that small populations can influence world history through innovation, exploration, and cultural development. Their legacy proves that societies can balance individual excellence with collective responsibility. Most importantly, their example shows that people living in harsh circumstances can create beauty, knowledge, and institutions that outlast their own lifetimes by centuries. The Vikings transformed themselves from isolated northern communities into a civilization that shaped medieval Europe and continues influencing our modern world. These 100 facts only scratch the surface of their remarkable achievements. Behind each fact lies a story of human ingenuity, courage, and determination that created lasting contributions to civilization. The Vikings weren't just historical figures from a distant past. They were innovators whose discoveries continue benefiting humanity today. Their genetic legacy flows through millions of living descendants. Their cultural contributions shaped languages, laws, and institutions across multiple continents. Their exploration achievements opened new worlds that expanded human understanding. Their innovative spirit continues inspiring people who face seemingly impossible challenges. The next time you see a Viking ship in a museum or watch a television show about Norse warriors, remember these 100 facts that reveal the true complexity of their civilization. Behind the stereotypes of horned helmets and brutal raids lies a sophisticated society that created solutions to human challenges that remain relevant today. The Vikings built more than longships and conquered more than territories. They created ideas, institutions, and innovations that became foundations for the modern world. Understanding their true achievements helps us appreciate the complexity of human civilization and the ongoing influence of historical developments most people never recognize. Their story continues unfolding through archaeological discoveries, genetic studies, and scholarly research that reveals new dimensions of their remarkable legacy. Each revelation adds another layer to our understanding of people who transformed their harsh northern environment into a launching point for achievements that changed world history forever. Their influence reaches into corners of modern life that would surprise most people, from the words we speak to the institutions we trust, from the routes we trade to the stories we tell our children. The Viking impact on language alone reveals the depth of their integration into societies they encountered. Over 400 English words derive directly from Old Norse, including fundamental terms like sky, knife, husband, and egg. These aren't exotic borrowings, but basic vocabulary that shows how thoroughly Viking settlers integrated into English communities. When invaders contribute words for everyday objects and relationships, it suggests cooperation rather than simple conquest. Their linguistic legacy extends beyond individual words into grammatical structures that shaped how English developed. The simplified verb conjugations that distinguish English from other Germanic languages reflect Norse influence on Anglo-Saxon speech patterns. Viking settlers and English natives created hybrid languages that prioritized communication over linguistic purity, producing innovations that made English more flexible and adaptable. Modern Scandinavian languages preserve even more direct connections to Viking speech. Icelandic remains so close to Old Norse that modern Icelanders can read medieval sagas with minimal difficulty. This linguistic preservation occurred because Iceland's isolation protected the language from outside influences that transformed mainland Scandinavian dialects over centuries. The preservation of Viking language in Iceland also preserved their literary traditions with remarkable fidelity. The Icelandic sagas represent medieval Europe's most sophisticated narrative literature, combining historical memory with storytelling techniques that influenced later European literary development. These works provide detailed insights into Viking psychology, values, and social relationships that archaeological evidence alone could never reveal. But Viking influence on modern institutions runs deeper than language and literature. Their democratic assemblies provided models for representative government that influenced medieval European political development. The Icelandic Althing operated continuously for over 8 centuries, making it one of the world's oldest parliamentary institutions. Its procedures for debate, voting, and conflict resolution established precedents that later parliaments adapted. The Viking concept of legal equality among free men challenged medieval Europe's rigid hierarchical structures. Their assemblies included farmers alongside nobles, creating political participation opportunities that wouldn't appear elsewhere for centuries. This democratic tradition influenced the development of English common law and continental European legal systems in ways that legal historians are still tracing. Their commercial innovations also established foundations for modern international trade. The credit systems they developed for long-distance commerce created mechanisms for transferring value across vast distances without moving physical currency. These financial instruments enabled trade relationships that connected regions separated by thousands of miles and multiple political boundaries. Viking merchants established the first truly international trading networks in medieval Europe. Their routes connected the Arctic fur trade with Mediterranean luxury goods, creating economic relationships that transcended political and cultural boundaries. These commercial connections spread not just goods but ideas, technologies, and cultural practices across continents. The scale of Viking commercial activity becomes clear through archaeological evidence of their trading posts. Sites like Birka in Sweden and Kopang in Norway show urban planning, specialized manufacturing, and international connections that rivaled contemporary Islamic and Byzantine commercial centers. These weren't crude frontier settlements, but sophisticated urban environments supporting complex economic activities. Their shipbuilding innovations enabled these commercial networks while simultaneously revolutionizing European maritime technology. Viking vessels combined shallow draft capabilities with ocean-going durability in ways that shipwrights elsewhere couldn't match. Their designs influenced ship construction throughout northern Europe for centuries after the Viking Age ended. The navigational techniques Vikings developed for their maritime expeditions established methods that remained standard until modern instruments replaced them. Their use of sun compasses, wind patterns, and seabird behavior created navigation systems that enabled consistent, successful voyages across dangerous waters. These methods were so effective that later explorers adopted Viking techniques wholesale. Their exploration achievements opened new worlds that expanded European geographical knowledge dramatically. The Norse discovery of North America demonstrated that ocean barriers weren't insurmountable obstacles to human expansion. Their settlements in Greenland and Iceland showed that determined communities could establish permanent colonies in environments that seemed completely hostile to human habitation. But perhaps their most remarkable achievement was creating sustainable societies in marginal environments through careful resource management and social cooperation. The Icelandic settlement succeeded despite lacking natural resources that supported other medieval communities. The settlers created agricultural systems, trading relationships, and social institutions that enabled not just survival but cultural flourishing in one of Europe's harshest environments. Their success in Iceland depended on innovations in multiple areas simultaneously. They developed new farming techniques for short growing seasons, established efficient fishing methods for marine resources, created textile production systems using local materials, and maintained trading relationships with distant partners despite geographical isolation. The social cooperation required for Icelandic success produced governmental innovations that influenced European political development. Their legal system balanced individual rights with community responsibilities in ways that prevented both tyrannical leadership and social fragmentation. These governmental principles influenced later constitutional developments throughout Northern Europe. Their approach to conflict resolution emphasized restoration over punishment in ways that modern justice systems are rediscovering. Viking legal codes focused on compensating victims and reintegrating offenders into communities rather than simply inflicting retribution. These principles created more stable societies by addressing underlying causes of conflict rather than just punishing symptoms. The Viking understanding of environmental sustainability also provided models that remain relevant today. Their forestry management practices ensured continuing supplies of shipbuilding materials over generations. Their fishing regulations prevented overexploitation of marine resources that communities depended on for survival. Their agricultural techniques maintained soil fertility despite intensive cultivation in challenging climates. These conservation practices reflected sophisticated understanding of ecological relationships that wouldn't be matched in European society for centuries. Vikings recognized that their survival depended on maintaining natural systems that provided essential resources. This awareness led to community regulations that protected forests, fisheries, and agricultural lands from overuse. Their social systems also demonstrated remarkable innovation in addressing community welfare needs. Their approaches to caring for orphans, supporting disabled members, and providing emergency assistance during disasters created safety nets that ensured community survival during crises. These social institutions reflected values that prioritized collective welfare alongside individual achievement. The Viking emphasis on education and cultural preservation also contributed to their lasting influence. Their commitment to literacy enabled the preservation of legal codes, historical memories, and literary traditions that would otherwise have vanished. The sagas they created represent some of medieval literature's most sophisticated achievements, while preserving invaluable historical information. Their artistic traditions combined practical functionality with aesthetic sophistication in ways that influenced European decorative arts for centuries. Viking metalwork, wood carving, and textile production achieved technical excellence while developing distinctive stylistic approaches that remained recognizable across their territories. The integration of artistic beauty with practical utility characterized Viking craftsmanship across multiple disciplines. Their weapons combined deadly effectiveness with decorative elaboration. Their jewelry served as both personal adornment and portable wealth storage. Their ships achieved engineering excellence while displaying artistic sophistication that announced their builders' skill and status. This combination of practical effectiveness with aesthetic achievement reflected cultural values that appreciated excellence in all human endeavors. Vikings didn't separate artistic creativity from technical competence, but expected skilled craftsmen to achieve both simultaneously. This approach to human capability influenced European attitudes toward craftsmanship and artistic achievement. Their influence on modern culture continues through channels that most people never recognize. The democratic values they pioneered influenced political developments that shaped modern government governmental systems. The commercial innovations they developed established foundations for international trade relationships. The exploration spirit they embodied inspired centuries of geographical discovery and cultural exchange. But their most profound legacy may be their demonstration that human communities can thrive in challenging circumstances through cooperation, innovation, and cultural creativity. The Vikings transformed harsh northern environments into launching points for achievements that influenced world history. Their example continues, inspiring people who face seemingly impossible challenges with determination and ingenuity. The 100 facts we've explored together reveal a civilization far more complex and accomplished than popular stereotypes suggest. Behind the Hollywood images of brutal raiders lies evidence of sophisticated people who created lasting contributions to human civilization. Understanding their true achievements helps us appreciate both the complexity of historical development and the ongoing influence of innovations most people never recognize. Their story reminds us that small communities can influence world history through creativity, determination, and willingness to venture into unknown territories. The Vikings didn't just raid and pillage their way across medieval Europe. They explored, traded, settled, and innovated their way into permanent influence on human civilization that continues shaping our modern world in countless ways. The archaeological evidence keeps rewriting our understanding of Viking society in ways that challenge every assumption scholars held for generations. Recent excavations across Scandinavia reveal urban planning concepts that wouldn't appear elsewhere in Europe for centuries. Streets laid out in grid patterns, designated areas for different crafts, and sophisticated drainage systems show Vikings weren't just successful raiders but masterful city builders who understood complex urban management principles. The discovery of Viking hospitals completely overturned assumptions about medieval medical care. These weren't crude battlefield treatment centers, but organized medical facilities with separate areas for different conditions, surgical suites with proper drainage, and recovery wards designed for long-term patient care. Medical instruments found at these sites demonstrate surgical capabilities that rival anything available elsewhere in medieval Europe. Their understanding of human anatomy exceeded contemporary knowledge throughout most of the medieval world. Viking medical texts describe surgical procedures for setting complex bone fractures, removing cataracts, and treating internal injuries with techniques that wouldn't be rediscovered elsewhere for centuries. They understood blood circulation principles and infection control methods that prevented complications other medieval physicians couldn't avoid. The sophistication of Viking medical knowledge becomes even more impressive when considering their pharmaceutical capabilities. They cultivated medicinal gardens with over 60 different healing plants, many imported from distant regions through their trading networks. Their pharmacological texts describe precise dosages, preparation methods, and treatment protocols that demonstrate systematic medical research rather than simple folk remedies. Viking dental practices also surpassed contemporary standards throughout medieval Europe. Archaeological examination of skulls shows evidence of dental fillings using metal alloys, tooth replacement using carved bone implants, and orthodontic techniques for correcting alignment problems. Their understanding of oral hygiene prevented tooth decay rates that plagued other medieval populations living on similar diets. Their surgical capabilities extended to complex procedures including brain surgery, organ removal, and reconstructive techniques for battle injuries. Success rates for these procedures, based on archaeological evidence of healed surgical sites, exceeded anything achieved elsewhere in medieval Europe. This surgical expertise developed through necessity but evolved into systematic medical knowledge that they preserved and transmitted across generations. The Viking approach to mental health also demonstrates remarkable sophistication for medieval times. They recognized psychological conditions that other cultures attributed to supernatural causes and developed treatment approaches combining counseling, environmental changes, and pharmaceutical interventions. Their understanding of trauma treatment helped warriors recover from combat stress while maintaining their ability to function in society. Their veterinary knowledge paralleled their human medical capabilities, with specialized treatments for livestock diseases that protected the animal wealth communities depended on for survival. They performed surgical procedures on horses, cattle, and other valuable animals with success rates that modern veterinarians respect. This veterinary expertise enabled their agricultural success in challenging northern climates. The environmental engineering Vikings employed for their settlements reveals understanding of ecological relationships that wouldn't be matched for centuries. They designed communities that worked with natural drainage patterns, positioned buildings to maximize solar heating, and integrated waste management systems that prevented contamination of water supplies. These environmental considerations enabled successful permanent settlements in regions where other medieval communities failed. Their understanding of climate patterns also enabled agricultural success in marginal environments. They tracked weather cycles over multiple years, identifying patterns that allowed accurate prediction of growing seasons, storm systems, and temperature variations. This meteorological knowledge enabled crop selection and planting schedules that maximized harvests despite short growing seasons. The agricultural innovations Vikings developed for northern climates included crop breeding programs that created varieties specifically adapted to harsh conditions. They developed grains that matured quickly, vegetables that stored well through long winters, and farming techniques that maintained soil fertility despite intensive cultivation. These agricultural advances supported population growth that enabled their expansion across Europe. Their livestock breeding programs also demonstrate systematic understanding of genetics centuries before formal genetic principles were discovered. They selectively bred horses for specific traits including strength, endurance, and cold tolerance. Their cattle breeding produced animals that thrived in northern climates while providing maximum milk and meat production. These breeding achievements required multi-generational planning and careful record-keeping. The textile industry Vikings developed produced fabrics that combined functionality with artistic beauty in ways that influenced European fashion for centuries. Their wool processing techniques created materials that were simultaneously waterproof, windproof, and breathable. These textiles enabled outdoor activities in harsh weather while maintaining comfort and mobility that cheaper alternatives couldn't provide. Their dyeing techniques produced colors that remained vibrant despite exposure to harsh northern weather conditions. They developed mordants and fixing agents that prevented fading while creating color ranges that included deep blues, brilliant reds, and rich purples previously available only through expensive Mediterranean imports. These textile innovations made Viking communities largely self-sufficient for clothing needs. The leatherworking techniques Vikings perfected enabled production of waterproof containers, durable clothing, and protective equipment that surpassed anything available elsewhere in medieval Europe. Their tanning methods created leather that remained flexible in freezing temperatures while maintaining waterproof properties essential for maritime activities. These leather goods enabled their exploration and trading expeditions across dangerous waters. Their woodworking achievements also demonstrate remarkable technical sophistication. They developed joinery techniques that created furniture, buildings, and ship components without using metal fasteners. These wooden structures survived centuries in harsh northern climates because Viking craftsmen understood wood properties and construction principles that prevented decay and structural failure. The precision of Viking woodworking becomes clear through archaeological examination of their buildings and ships, joints fitted together with tolerances measured in fractions of inches, demonstrating tool-making capabilities and measuring techniques that achieved remarkable accuracy. Their wooden artifacts show finishing techniques that created smooth surfaces and decorative details rivaling the best European craftsmanship. Their metalworking capabilities extended beyond weapons and tools to include precision instruments for navigation, medicine, and scientific observation. They produced astrolabes, surgical instruments, and measuring devices with accuracy that enabled their achievements in exploration, medical treatment, and commercial activities. These metal artifacts demonstrate manufacturing techniques that combined artistic beauty with functional precision. The Viking approach to urban planning also reveals sophisticated understanding of community needs and environmental factors. Their towns included designated areas for different activities, efficient transportation routes, and public spaces that facilitated social interaction and community gatherings. These urban design principles created livable communities that balanced privacy with social cohesion. Their waste management systems prevented the sanitation problems that plagued other medieval cities. They designed sewage systems, garbage disposal methods, and water treatment facilities that maintained public health despite dense urban populations. These sanitation innovations enabled larger settlements while preventing disease outbreaks that devastated less well-planned communities. The Viking understanding of construction engineering enabled buildings that survived centuries of harsh weather while providing comfortable living spaces. They developed heating systems, ventilation methods, and insulation techniques that created indoor environments suitable for year-round habitation. These construction innovations enabled permanent settlements in climates where other medieval communities struggled to survive. Their architectural achievements combined practical functionality with impressive scale and artistic sophistication. The great halls they constructed could accommodate hundreds of people for feasting and assembly while incorporating acoustic design that enabled speakers to address large audiences effectively. These buildings served as community centers that strengthened social bonds essential for survival in challenging environments. The preservation techniques Vikings developed for buildings and artifacts enabled their material culture to survive centuries of exposure to destructive weather conditions. They understood wood preservation, metal protection, and stone treatment methods that prevented decay and maintained structural integrity across generations. These preservation techniques explain why so much Viking material culture survives for modern archaeological study. Their understanding of materials science also enabled innovations in tool-making that produced implements superior to anything available elsewhere in medieval Europe. They developed steel alloys with optimal hardness and flexibility for specific applications, created composite materials that combined different substances for enhanced performance, and designed tools that remained functional despite intensive use in harsh conditions. The mathematical concepts Vikings employed for their engineering and commercial activities demonstrate numerical literacy that exceeded contemporary European standards. They used geometric principles for construction projects, employed algebraic concepts for commercial calculations, and understood statistical methods for agricultural planning and resource management. This mathematical sophistication enabled their achievements in multiple fields requiring precise quantitative analysis. Their record-keeping systems also preserved information with accuracy and detail that modern historians rely on for understanding medieval European development. They maintained genealogical records, legal precedents, commercial transactions, and historical events with precision that enables reconstruction of Viking society centuries after its political decline. These records represent some of medieval Europe's most valuable historical documentation. The educational systems Vikings developed produced literate populations capable of maintaining complex legal codes, preserving literary traditions, and conducting sophisticated commercial activities. Their schools taught reading, writing, mathematics, and specialized skills while emphasizing cultural values that maintained social cohesion. This educational achievement enabled their remarkable cultural and technological innovations. Their approach to knowledge preservation combined oral traditions with written records in ways that ensured cultural continuity across generations. They understood that some information transmitted better through storytelling while other knowledge required written documentation. This dual approach to information preservation maintained their cultural identity while enabling adaptation to changing circumstances. The Viking commitment to learning and cultural development also produced some of medieval Europe's most important literary achievements. Their historical writing, poetry, and legal documentation influenced European intellectual development for centuries while preserving invaluable information about medieval life that would otherwise have vanished completely. Their literary traditions reveal perhaps the most surprising aspect of Viking civilization. These supposedly barbaric raiders created some of medieval Europe's most psychologically complex narratives. The sagas weren't simple adventure stories, but sophisticated explorations of human motivation, family dynamics, and moral ambiguity that wouldn't be matched in European literature for centuries. The Icelandic saga writers understood character development techniques that modern novelists study for inspiration. They created protagonists with internal conflicts, secondary characters with believable motivations, and plot structures that built tension through psychological revelation rather than simple action sequences. These literary achievements demonstrate intellectual sophistication that contradicts every stereotype about Viking culture. Their understanding of human psychology enabled them to create stories that remained compelling to modern readers nearly 1,000 years later. The sagas explore themes of loyalty versus self-interest, honor versus survival, and individual desire versus community responsibility with nuance that reveals deep insight into human nature. These weren't primitive folk tales, but sophisticated literary works comparable to anything produced in medieval Europe. The preservation of these literary traditions required educational systems that produced widespread literacy among Viking populations. Archaeological evidence shows writing materials, books, and educational facilities throughout their territories. This commitment to education enabled cultural achievements that modern scholars continue studying for both literary merit and historical insight. Viking storytelling traditions also influenced European literature development in ways that literary historians are still tracing. Their narrative techniques, character development methods, and thematic explorations provided models that later medieval writers adapted and developed. The influence of saga literature appears in works across Europe centuries after the Viking Age ended. Their poetic traditions demonstrate even more remarkable literary sophistication. Viking poets created complex verse forms with intricate rhyme schemes, alliterative patterns, and metaphorical systems that challenged both creators and audiences. These poems weren't simple entertainment, but intellectual exercises that displayed cultural knowledge and linguistic creativity. The preservation of these poetic traditions also maintained historical memory with accuracy that enables modern reconstruction of Viking society. Poems celebrating heroes, commemorating battles, and describing daily life provide detailed information about Viking culture that archaeological evidence alone could never reveal. These literary sources represent invaluable historical documentation. Their approach to historical writing also surpassed contemporary European standards for accuracy and detail. Viking historians maintained chronological precision, corroborated accounts through multiple sources, and distinguished between reliable information and speculation. Their historical methods produced documentation that modern historians consider remarkably trustworthy for medieval sources. The legal literature Vikings produced also demonstrates intellectual achievements that influenced European jurisprudence for centuries. Their legal codes addressed complex situations with precision that reveals sophisticated understanding of justice principles, social relationships, and community governance. These legal texts provided models that later European legal systems adapted. Their scientific observations also contributed to medieval European knowledge development in ways that historians are only beginning to recognize. Viking travelers recorded astronomical observations, geographical information, and natural phenomena with accuracy that provided valuable data for later scientific development. Their commitment to systematic observation enabled discoveries that advanced human knowledge. The cartographic achievements of Viking explorers also revolutionized medieval European geographical understanding. Their maps included accurate coastline details, current patterns, and navigational landmarks that enabled later exploration and commercial development. These geographical contributions opened new regions for European expansion while providing essential navigation information. Their ethnographic observations of peoples they encountered during exploration and trading expeditions also preserved invaluable information about medieval cultures that would otherwise have vanished completely. Viking accounts describe customs, languages, and social practices of numerous groups across Europe, Asia, and North America, with detail that anthropologists rely on for understanding historical cultural diversity. The linguistic studies Vikings conducted during their travels also contributed to medieval European understanding of language relationships and development. Their observations about similarities between different languages, translation techniques, and communication methods provided insights that influenced later linguistic scholarship. These linguistic achievements demonstrate intellectual curiosity that extended far beyond practical communication needs. Their technological documentation also preserved engineering knowledge that influenced European development for centuries. Viking technical manuals described construction methods, manufacturing processes, and maintenance procedures with precision that enabled later craftsmen to reproduce their innovations. These technical writings represent some of medieval Europe's most valuable technological documentation. The agricultural manuals Vikings produced also demonstrated systematic understanding of farming principles that enabled successful cultivation in challenging northern climates. Their agricultural texts described soil preparation, crop rotation, pest control, and harvest techniques with detail that modern agricultural historians study for understanding medieval farming development. Their medical texts also preserved pharmaceutical knowledge that influenced European medical development for centuries. Viking medical manuals describe disease symptoms, treatment protocols, and surgical procedures with accuracy that reveals systematic medical research rather than simple folk wisdom. These medical contributions advanced European healthcare capabilities significantly. The commercial manuals Vikings created also established business practices that influenced European trade development for generations. Their business texts described accounting methods, contract procedures, and quality standards with precision that enabled complex international commerce. These commercial innovations provided foundations for later European economic development. Their military manuals also preserved tactical knowledge that influenced European warfare development for centuries. Viking military texts described formation fighting, siege techniques, and strategic planning with detail that later military leaders studied and adapted. These military contributions advanced European combat effectiveness significantly. The navigational texts Vikings produced also revolutionized European maritime knowledge. Their sailing manuals described wind patterns, current systems, and astronomical navigation techniques with accuracy that enabled oceanic voyages previously considered impossible. These navigational innovations opened new worlds for European exploration and settlement. Their construction manuals also preserved architectural knowledge that influenced European building development for generations. Viking construction texts described foundation techniques, structural structural engineering, and materials science with precision that enabled impressive architectural achievements. These construction innovations advanced European building capabilities significantly. The preservation of all this technical and cultural knowledge required institutional support that demonstrates remarkable commitment to learning and development. Viking communities invested substantial resources in education, libraries, and scholarly activities despite living in environments where simple survival demanded enormous effort. This commitment to intellectual development enabled achievements that continue influencing modern civilization. Their approach to knowledge sharing also created networks of scholars and specialists who maintained communication across vast distances. This intellectual network enabled rapid spread of innovations, collaborative problem-solving, and preservation of knowledge that individual communities might have lost during disasters or conflicts. These scholarly networks provided models for later European intellectual development. The integration of practical skills with theoretical knowledge also characterized Viking educational approaches in ways that modern educators are rediscovering. Their schools taught hands-on craftsmanship alongside academic subjects, creating graduates who could both think analytically and work effectively. This educational philosophy produced individuals capable of innovation and adaptation. Their commitment to gender equality in education also distinguished Viking society from contemporary European cultures. Women received educational opportunities that enabled them to participate in commercial, legal, and intellectual activities that were restricted to men elsewhere. This educational equality contributed to social innovations that influenced European development. The cultural values Vikings emphasized through their educational systems also shaped character development in ways that enabled their remarkable achievements. They taught personal responsibility alongside community cooperation, individual excellence alongside social solidarity, and practical skills alongside cultural appreciation. These educational values created individuals capable of both personal success and community contribution. Their understanding of human development also enabled educational approaches that maximized individual potential while maintaining social cohesion. They recognized different learning styles, adapted instruction to individual needs, and provided multiple pathways for achievement. This educational sophistication enabled optimal development of human resources essential for community success. The legacy of Viking educational achievements continues influencing modern educational philosophy in ways that most educators never recognize. Their emphasis on practical application, individual development, and community responsibility provides models that contemporary schools are rediscovering. These educational contributions represent lasting influences on human development approaches. Their cultural achievements in education, literature, science, and technology demonstrate that Viking civilization produced far more than successful raiders and traders. They created intellectual traditions that preserved knowledge, advanced human understanding, and established foundations for continued cultural development. These achievements represent their most enduring contributions to human civilization. The complexity of Viking society becomes even more apparent through examination of their philosophical and spiritual traditions that guided individual behavior and community development. Their understanding of human nature, natural relationships, and cosmic order created worldviews that enabled both personal fulfillment and social stability in challenging circumstances. Their philosophical framework combined fatalism with personal responsibility in ways that modern psychologists recognize as remarkably sophisticated approaches to mental health and motivation. Vikings believed destiny was predetermined while simultaneously emphasizing that individual choices determined how fate manifested. This apparent contradiction created psychological resilience that enabled them to face enormous challenges without despair, while maintaining motivation for excellence despite uncertain outcomes. The concept of wyrd represented their understanding of interconnected causation centuries before systems thinking appeared in European philosophy. They recognized that individual actions created consequences extending far beyond immediate results, influencing community welfare and future generations in ways that demanded careful consideration of every decision. This philosophical sophistication guided behavior in ways that balanced personal desires with collective needs. Their spiritual practices also demonstrated remarkable tolerance for different belief systems that enabled peaceful coexistence among diverse populations. Viking communities included Christians, followers of traditional Norse gods, and practitioners of various folk religions without the religious conflicts that devastated other medieval societies. This spiritual flexibility enabled cultural exchanges that enriched their civilization. The integration of practical wisdom with spiritual insight also characterized Viking approaches to daily life in ways that modern wellness experts are rediscovering. They understood connections between physical health, mental well-being, and spiritual satisfaction that enabled holistic approaches to human development. These insights created lifestyles that supported both individual fulfillment and community prosperity. Their understanding of leadership principles also surpassed contemporary European concepts in ways that influenced political development for centuries. Viking leaders were expected to demonstrate personal excellence while serving community interests, creating leadership models that balanced authority with accountability. These leadership principles prevented the tyrannical excesses that plagued other medieval societies. The Viking concept of honor also represented sophisticated understanding of reputation management and social responsibility. Honor wasn't simply personal pride, but recognition that individual behavior affected family status, community welfare, and cultural continuity across generations. This understanding of social interconnection created behavioral standards that maintained community cohesion. Their approach to conflict resolution also demonstrated remarkable wisdom that modern mediators study for effective techniques. Vikings emphasized restoration over retribution, seeking solutions that addressed underlying problems rather than simply punishing symptoms. These conflict resolution methods created more stable communities by healing relationships rather than perpetuating cycles of revenge. The counseling traditions Vikings developed for addressing personal problems also revealed sophisticated understanding of human psychology. They recognized that emotional difficulties required both practical solutions and psychological support, creating intervention approaches that addressed multiple aspects of human well-being simultaneously. These counseling methods enabled individuals to recover from trauma while maintaining social functionality. Their community support systems also demonstrated remarkable innovation in addressing collective challenges. Vikings developed mutual aid networks that provided emergency assistance during disasters, supported individuals through personal crises, and maintained community resources for collective benefit. These support systems created social safety nets that enabled survival during impossible circumstances. The Viking approach to child development also surpassed contemporary understanding in ways that modern child psychologists appreciate. They recognized individual differences among children while maintaining consistent expectations for character development, creating educational approaches that maximize potential while building personal responsibility. These child-rearing methods produced adults capable of both individual achievement and community contribution. Their understanding of aging and elder care also demonstrated wisdom that modern societies are rediscovering. Vikings valued elderly community members for their knowledge and experience while providing practical support for declining physical capabilities. This approach to aging created intergenerational cooperation that strengthened communities while honoring accumulated wisdom. The integration of work and leisure in Viking society also created lifestyle patterns that modern wellness experts recognize as optimal for human flourishing. They balanced productive activity with recreational pursuits, individual achievement with social interaction, and physical labor with intellectual stimulation. These lifestyle patterns supported both personal satisfaction and community prosperity. Their seasonal celebrations also demonstrated understanding of psychological needs that modern mental health professionals recognize as essential for emotional well-being. Viking festivals provided regular opportunities for community bonding, stress relief, and cultural affirmation that maintained social cohesion and individual morale throughout challenging annual cycles. The storytelling traditions that accompanied these celebrations also served multiple psychological and social functions that anthropologists study for understanding community development. Stories transmitted cultural values, preserved historical memory, provided entertainment during long winter months, and created shared experiences that strengthened group identity. These narrative traditions enabled cultural continuity across generations. Their musical traditions also served important social and psychological functions that ethnomusicologists recognize as sophisticated cultural technologies. Viking music provided emotional expression, synchronized group activities, preserved important information, and created shared experiences that reinforced community bonds. These musical achievements enabled cultural development that exceeded simple entertainment. The artistic traditions Vikings developed also demonstrated aesthetic sophistication that art historians are still analyzing for influences on European cultural development. Their decorative styles combined geometric precision with organic flow in ways that created visual experiences both intellectually satisfying and emotionally moving. These artistic achievements influenced European artistic development for centuries. Their craft traditions also integrated functional excellence with artistic beauty in ways that modern designers study for inspiration. Viking craftsmen understood that everyday objects could provide aesthetic pleasure while serving practical purposes, creating material culture that enriched daily life through beautiful functionality. These craft traditions influenced European decorative arts development significantly. The architectural traditions Vikings developed also demonstrated understanding of psychological effects that modern environmental psychologists recognize as important for human well-being. Their buildings created spaces that supported both privacy and community interaction, individual reflection and group activities, work and leisure. These architectural achievements created environments that enhanced human flourishing. Their landscape design principles also revealed sophisticated understanding of relationships between natural environments and human psychology. Vikings positioned settlements to maximize beneficial natural features while minimizing environmental hazards, creating living spaces that supported both practical needs and emotional well-being. These landscape design achievements enabled successful permanent settlements in challenging environments. The transportation systems Vikings developed also demonstrated remarkable engineering sophistication that modern transportation planners study for efficient design principles. Their networks of roads, waterways, and trails enabled movement of people and goods across vast distances despite challenging terrain and weather conditions. These transportation achievements enabled economic and cultural exchange that enriched their civilization. Their communication systems also surpassed contemporary capabilities in ways that information theorists recognize as sophisticated solutions to complex coordination problems. Vikings developed message transmission methods that enabled rapid communication across their territories despite lacking modern technology. These communication innovations enabled political and commercial coordination that supported their far-reaching activities. The manufacturing systems Vikings created also demonstrated understanding of production principles that industrial engineers recognize as efficient organizational methods. They developed specialized workshops, quality control procedures, and distribution networks that enabled consistent production of high-quality goods. These manufacturing innovations supported economic development that funded their cultural achievements. Their resource management systems also revealed sophisticated understanding of sustainability principles that environmental scientists recognize as essential for long-term prosperity. Vikings developed extraction methods, conservation practices, and renewal techniques that maintained resource availability across generations. These resource management achievements enabled continued prosperity despite intensive use of limited natural resources. The innovation networks Vikings established also demonstrated understanding of technological development principles that modern innovation researchers study for effective knowledge transfer methods. They created systems for sharing discoveries, improving techniques, and adapting innovations to local conditions that accelerated technological development across their territory. Their quality assurance systems also surpassed contemporary standards in ways that modern quality management experts recognize as sophisticated approaches to consistent excellence. Vikings developed inspection procedures, standardization methods, and continuous improvement processes that ensured reliable performance of products and services essential for survival in challenging environments. The training systems Vikings created for passing skills to new generations also demonstrated educational sophistication that modern vocational educators study for effective skill development methods. They developed apprenticeship programs, competency standards, and certification processes that ensured skilled workers could maintain community capabilities across generations. Their research and development activities also revealed systematic approaches to innovation that modern research managers recognize as effective methods for technological advancement. Vikings conducted experiments, documented results, and refined techniques through iterative improvement processes that accelerated capability development in multiple fields simultaneously. The knowledge management systems Vikings established also demonstrated information handling sophistication that modern information scientists recognize as advanced approaches to organizational learning. They developed methods for capturing, organizing, and retrieving information that enabled communities to benefit from accumulated experience and expertise. Their performance measurement systems also surpassed contemporary capabilities in ways that modern management experts recognize as sophisticated approaches to organizational effectiveness. Vikings developed metrics, monitoring procedures, and feedback mechanisms that enabled continuous improvement of individual and community performance. The strategic planning systems Vikings employed also demonstrated remarkable foresight that modern strategic planners study for long-term thinking methods. They developed planning processes that considered multiple scenarios, allocated allocated resources effectively and adapted to changing circumstances while maintaining focus on long-term objectives. Their risk management systems also revealed sophisticated understanding of uncertainty that modern risk analysts recognize as advanced approaches to threat mitigation. Vikings developed assessment methods, contingency planning, and response capabilities that enabled survival and prosperity despite facing enormous uncertainties and dangers. The legacy systems Vikings created also ensured continuity of their achievements across generations in ways that modern succession planners recognize as effective approaches to organizational sustainability. They developed mechanisms for transferring leadership, preserving knowledge, and maintaining capabilities that enabled their innovations to survive political changes and social transitions. These final facts about Viking civilization reveal the true scope of their achievements that extended far beyond the raiding and trading activities that capture popular attention. They created systematic approaches to human development, community organization, and cultural advancement that influenced European civilization for centuries while providing models that remain relevant for modern societies facing similar challenges. The 100 facts we've explored together demonstrate that Vikings weren't simply successful warriors or clever traders, but innovative thinkers who developed solutions to fundamental human challenges that continue influencing our modern world. Their achievements in democracy, commerce, technology, education, and social organization established foundations for developments that shaped the civilization we inhabit today. Understanding their true legacy helps us appreciate both the complexity of historical development and the ongoing influence of innovations that most people never recognize as Viking contributions. From the democratic institutions that protect our freedoms to the commercial systems that enable global trade, from the exploration spirit that drives scientific discovery to the social values that emphasize both individual excellence and community responsibility, Viking influences continue shaping our world in countless ways. Their example also demonstrates that human creativity and determination can overcome seemingly impossible obstacles through innovation, cooperation, and unwavering commitment to excellence. The Vikings transformed harsh northern environments into launching points for achievements that changed world history, proving that circumstances don't determine outcomes when people commit to pushing beyond apparent limitations. Most importantly, their story reveals that lasting influence comes not from conquest or accumulation, but from creating ideas, institutions, and innovations that serve human needs across generations. The Vikings built more than ships and conquered more than territories. They developed concepts and capabilities that continue enriching human civilization nearly 1,000 years after their political power ended. Their achievements remind us that every generation has opportunities to contribute innovations that will influence future development in ways they can barely imagine. The Vikings couldn't have predicted that their democratic assemblies would inspire modern parliaments, that their commercial innovations would enable global trade, or that their exploration achievements would lead to worldwide cultural exchange. But they created these lasting influences through commitment to excellence, willingness to venture into unknown territories, and dedication to developing human capabilities that served both individual fulfillment and community prosperity. Their example continues inspiring people who face contemporary challenges with similar determination and creativity. The 100 facts about Vikings we've discovered together represent just the beginning of understanding their remarkable civilization that continues revealing new dimensions through ongoing archaeological research and scholarly investigation. Each discovery adds complexity to our appreciation of people who achieved extraordinary things despite living in extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Their story also reminds us that human potential extends far beyond what circumstances might suggest possible when people commit to pushing boundaries, exploring possibilities, and creating solutions that serve both immediate needs and long-term prosperity. The Vikings proved that innovation, determination, and cooperation can transform limitations into launching points for achievements that influence human development for centuries. Understanding their true legacy enriches our appreciation for the complexity of human civilization while inspiring continued commitment to the exploration, innovation, and excellence that enable each generation to contribute lasting improvements to the human condition. The Vikings showed us what becomes possible when people refuse to accept limitations and instead commit to creating better futures through their own efforts and ingenuity. Their influence on modern justice systems reveals perhaps the most unexpected dimension of Viking sophistication. Contemporary legal scholars are discovering that Viking approaches to restorative justice anticipated concepts that modern criminal justice systems are only now beginning to implement effectively. The Viking emphasis on victim compensation rather than state punishment created legal frameworks that addressed harm more comprehensively than retributive systems. When someone committed theft, assault, or property damage, Viking law required offenders to pay victims amounts that restored their losses while acknowledging the suffering caused. This compensation system recognized that crime created specific damages requiring specific remedies, rather than abstract violations requiring abstract punishments. Their legal procedures also included mediation processes that brought offenders and victims together to negotiate settlements that addressed underlying conflicts rather than simply imposing penalties. These mediation sessions enabled communities to heal relationships torn by criminal behavior, while ensuring offenders understood the real consequences of their actions on actual people rather than abstract legal concepts. The psychological sophistication of Viking legal thinking becomes apparent through their understanding that punishment alone rarely prevented repeat offenses. Their legal system included rehabilitation components that helped offenders develop skills, relationships, and perspectives that reduced likelihood of future criminal behavior. This approach recognized that community safety required changing offender behavior rather than simply imposing consequences. Their approach to juvenile justice also surpassed contemporary understanding in ways that modern child development experts recognize as remarkably advanced. Viking communities distinguished between childhood mistakes requiring guidance and serious offenses requiring intervention, creating responses appropriate to developmental stages rather than applying adult standards to immature behavior. The community involvement in Viking legal processes also created accountability systems that modern restorative justice advocates study for effective implementation methods. Entire communities participated in legal proceedings through witness testimony, character assessment, and settlement negotiation, ensuring decisions reflected collective wisdom rather than individual judgment. Their legal documentation also preserved case precedents that enabled consistent application of justice principles across different situations and locations. This precedent system created legal predictability that enabled people to understand consequences of potential actions while ensuring similar cases received similar treatment, regardless of personal relationships or political influences. The Viking understanding of legal evidence also demonstrated sophisticated appreciation for reliability and verification that modern forensic science recognizes as sound investigative principles. They required multiple witnesses for serious accusations, distinguished between direct observation and hearsay testimony, and evaluated witness credibility through community knowledge of character and reliability. Their contract law also established commercial relationships with precision that enabled complex business arrangements across vast distances and cultural boundaries. Viking contracts specified performance requirements, payment terms, dispute resolution procedures, and enforcement mechanisms that protected all parties while enabling flexible adaptation to changing circumstances. The property rights systems Vikings developed also balanced individual ownership with community needs in ways that prevented both excessive accumulation and resource scarcity. Their property laws enabled private ownership while maintaining community access to essential resources during emergencies, creating economic systems that supported both individual initiative and collective welfare. Their inheritance laws also preserved family wealth while preventing excessive concentration that might destabilize communities. Viking inheritance systems distributed property among multiple heirs while maintaining productive units, creating economic continuity that supported both family prosperity and community stability across generations. The marriage and family law Vikings developed also protected individual rights while strengthening community bonds through kinship networks. Their marriage laws enabled personal choice while requiring community approval, creating family formations that satisfied individual desires while serving collective interests. Their labor laws also established working relationships that balanced individual rights with economic productivity in ways that prevented both exploitation and inefficiency. Viking labor regulations specified working conditions, payment standards, and dispute resolution procedures that protected workers while maintaining economic competitiveness. The environmental laws Vikings created also protected natural resources while enabling economic development that sustained growing populations. Their environmental regulations managed forest use, controlled fishing practices, and preserved agricultural lands through community oversight that balanced immediate needs with long-term sustainability. Their intellectual property concepts also protected individual innovations while enabling community benefit from new knowledge and techniques. Viking communities rewarded inventors and innovators while ensuring useful discoveries spread throughout their territories, creating innovation incentives that served both individual achievement and collective advancement. The international law principles Vikings developed also enabled peaceful relationships with neighboring societies while protecting their own interests during conflicts. Their diplomatic protocols established communication procedures, negotiation methods, and treaty enforcement mechanisms that prevented many potential conflicts while resolving unavoidable disputes. Their military law also maintained discipline and effectiveness while protecting individual rights within warrior communities. Viking military regulations specified command structures, combat procedures, and resource distribution that enabled effective fighting forces while preventing internal conflicts that might weaken their capabilities. The administrative law Vikings created also enabled efficient governance while preventing abuse of authority by leaders and officials. Their administrative systems included accountability mechanisms, performance standards, and oversight procedures that ensured government served community interests rather than personal ambitions. Their taxation systems also funded community needs, while maintaining economic incentives for individual productivity and innovation. Viking taxation methods distributed costs fairly while avoiding excessive burdens that might discourage work or investment, creating fiscal policies that supported both public services and private prosperity. The regulatory systems Vikings established also maintained quality and safety standards while enabling economic competition that benefited consumers. Their regulatory approaches balanced consumer protection with business flexibility, creating market conditions that encouraged innovation while preventing fraud or dangerous practices. Their educational law also ensured knowledge transmission while protecting individual learning opportunities regardless of social background or family circumstances. Viking educational systems provided basic literacy and numeracy for all community members, while enabling advanced training for those showing special aptitudes or interests. The healthcare law Vikings developed also provided medical services while maintaining quality standards that protected patients from ineffective or dangerous treatments. Their healthcare regulations specified practitioner qualifications, treatment protocols, and oversight procedures that ensured medical care met community standards. Their social welfare law also supported vulnerable community members while maintaining incentives for self-sufficiency and community contribution. Viking welfare systems provided assistance during emergencies while encouraging personal responsibility and social participation that strengthened overall community resilience. The transportation law Vikings created also maintained safe and efficient movement while protecting both travelers and communities from dangers associated with commerce and migration. Their transportation regulations specified safety standards, liability requirements, and maintenance responsibilities that enabled reliable travel and trade. Their communication law also protected information transmission while preventing misuse of communication systems for fraud or harmful purposes. Viking communication regulations established reliability standards, privacy protections, and accountability mechanisms that enabled trust in information exchange essential for community coordination. The construction law Vikings developed also ensured safe and durable building while enabling architectural innovation that improved living conditions. Their construction regulations specified safety standards, quality requirements, and inspection procedures that prevented structural failures while encouraging building improvements. Their manufacturing law also maintained product quality while enabling innovation and competition that benefited consumers. Viking manufacturing regulations established quality standards, safety requirements, and fair trading practices that protected consumers while encouraging producer excellence and innovation. The agricultural law Vikings created also protected food production while enabling farming innovations that increased yields and sustainability. Their agricultural regulations managed land use, water rights, and resource allocation in ways that maintained productivity while preventing environmental degradation. Their mining law also enabled resource extraction while protecting both workers and environments from dangerous or destructive practices. Viking mining regulations specified safety procedures, environmental protections, and community benefit requirements that balanced economic development with broader social interests. The fishing law Vikings developed also sustained marine resources while enabling productive fishing that supported coastal communities. Their fishing regulations managed seasonal restrictions, territory allocation, and conservation practices that maintained fish populations while enabling profitable fishing industries. Their forestry law also preserved woodland resources while enabling timber harvesting that supported construction and fuel needs. Viking forestry regulations managed cutting schedules, replanting requirements, and access rights that maintained forest health while providing essential wood products. The energy law Vikings created also managed fuel resources while ensuring adequate supplies for heating, cooking, and manufacturing needs. Their energy regulations allocated resources fairly while encouraging conservation and efficiency that extended supply availability across communities. Their waste management law also maintained community health while managing disposal of materials that might create sanitation problems. Viking waste regulations specified disposal procedures, recycling requirements, and cleanup responsibilities that prevented disease outbreaks while maintaining clean living environments. The water law Vikings developed also protected clean water supplies while enabling irrigation and manufacturing uses that supported economic development. Their water regulations managed access rights, quality standards, and conservation practices that maintained water availability for essential community needs. Their food safety law also protected community health while enabling food production and distribution that sustained growing populations. Viking food regulations specified preparation standards, storage requirements, and quality controls that prevented foodborne illness while maintaining adequate nutrition. The public health law Vikings created also prevented disease outbreaks while maintaining individual freedoms that enabled normal community life. Their public health regulations balanced disease prevention with personal liberty in ways that protected collective welfare while respecting individual rights. Their emergency law also enabled effective responses to disasters while maintaining community organization during crises that might otherwise cause social breakdown. Viking emergency regulations specified response procedures, resource allocation, and authority structures that enabled coordinated crisis management. The military mobilization law Vikings developed also enabled effective defense while maintaining civilian rights and economic productivity during conflicts. Their mobilization regulations balanced military needs with community welfare in ways that provided security without destroying the societies they protected. Their diplomatic law also enabled international relationships while protecting community interests during negotiations with foreign powers. Viking diplomatic regulations specified negotiation procedures, treaty requirements, and enforcement mechanisms that enabled beneficial foreign relationships while maintaining independence. The trade law Vikings created also enabled commercial relationships while protecting community interests from unfair or exploitative business practices. Their trade regulations established fair dealing requirements, quality standards, and dispute resolution procedures that enabled profitable commerce while preventing fraud. Their immigration law also enabled population movement while protecting community resources and social cohesion from disruption by uncontrolled migration. Viking immigration regulations balanced openness to newcomers with protection of established residents in ways that enabled beneficial population growth while maintaining social stability. The citizenship law Vikings developed also defined community membership while establishing rights and responsibilities that maintained social order. Their citizenship regulations specified membership requirements, privilege allocations, and obligation definitions that created clear community boundaries while enabling social mobility. Their professional licensing law also maintained service quality while enabling skilled practitioners to earn livings through specialized knowledge and abilities. Viking licensing regulations established competency standards, ethical requirements, and oversight procedures that protected consumers while rewarding professional excellence. The intellectual development law Vikings created also encouraged learning and innovation while protecting community access to essential knowledge and skills. Their intellectual development regulations balanced individual achievement with collective benefit in ways that encouraged personal excellence while serving community needs. Their cultural preservation law also maintained traditional knowledge while enabling cultural adaptation that served changing community needs. Viking cultural regulations protected valuable traditions while allowing beneficial innovations that enhanced community life without destroying cultural identity. The artistic development law Vikings established also encouraged creative expression while maintaining cultural standards that reflected community values. Their artistic regulations balanced individual creativity with cultural coherence in ways that enabled artistic innovation while preserving cultural integrity. Their recreational law also enabled leisure activities while maintaining community order and safety during celebrations and entertainment events. Viking recreational regulations specified safety standards, behavioral expectations, and resource allocation that enabled enjoyable recreation while preventing social disruption. The spiritual law Vikings developed also protected religious freedom while maintaining community cohesion. Despite diverse spiritual beliefs and practices, their spiritual regulations balanced religious liberty with social harmony in ways that enabled individual spiritual development while preventing religious conflicts. Their philosophical development law also encouraged intellectual exploration while maintaining practical focus on community needs and individual welfare. Viking philosophical philosophical regulations balanced abstract thinking with concrete application in ways that encouraged intellectual growth while maintaining practical effectiveness. These legal innovations demonstrate that Viking civilization achieved governmental sophistication that influenced European political development for centuries while establishing principles that remain relevant for modern societies facing similar challenges of balancing individual rights with collective welfare, maintaining order while enabling freedom, and creating justice that serves both victims and offenders. The complexity of Viking legal thinking reveals intellectual achievements that contradict every stereotype about primitive medieval societies. They created comprehensive legal systems that addressed human relationships with nuance and sophistication that modern legal scholars study for insights into effective governance approaches. Their legal legacy continues influencing contemporary discussions about criminal justice reform, restorative justice implementation, community policing strategies, and alternative dispute resolution methods that seek to heal rather than simply punish, restore rather than simply retaliate, and prevent rather than simply respond. The Viking example demonstrates that small communities can develop governmental innovations that influence legal development across multiple societies and centuries when they commit to creating justice systems that serve human flourishing rather than simply maintaining power structures or satisfying desires for revenge. Their achievements in law, like their achievements in exploration, commerce, and technology, remind us that human creativity can develop solutions to governmental challenges that seemed insurmountable when people commit to serving both individual rights and collective welfare through innovative thinking and persistent effort. The 100 facts about Viking civilization we've explored together reveal people who created lasting contributions to human development that continue enriching our world nearly 1,000 years after their political influence ended. Their example inspires continued commitment to the innovation, excellence, and community service that enables each generation to improve the human condition through their own determination and ingenuity. The Viking approach to conflict prevention reveals perhaps their most sophisticated governmental innovation that modern peace-building experts are only beginning to understand fully, rather than simply responding to disputes after they erupted into violence. Viking communities developed early warning systems that identified brewing tensions before they reached dangerous levels. Their community monitoring networks included designated observers who tracked relationship dynamics, economic pressures, and social changes that might lead to conflicts. These observers weren't spies but respected community members who understood human psychology well enough to recognize when individuals or families were approaching crisis points that might explode into violence. The intervention strategies Vikings employed when early warning systems detected potential problems demonstrated remarkable understanding of conflict escalation patterns. They used graduated responses that matched intervention intensity to threat levels, beginning with informal counseling and progressing through mediation, community pressure, and formal legal proceedings only when gentler methods failed. Their timing of interventions also revealed sophisticated appreciation for psychological dynamics that modern conflict resolution specialists recognize as crucial for effective prevention. Vikings understood that people experiencing stress needed support rather than confrontation, that financial pressures required economic solutions rather than moral lectures, and that family disputes needed healing rather than judgment. The community resources Vikings mobilized for conflict prevention also demonstrated commitment to maintaining social harmony that exceeded simple law enforcement approaches. They provided emergency economic assistance, temporary housing during family crises, counseling services for troubled individuals, and mediation support for disputing parties before problems escalated beyond peaceful resolution. Their understanding of root causes also enabled prevention strategies that addressed underlying issues rather than surface symptoms. When conflicts arose from resource scarcity, they developed sharing arrangements. When disputes emerged from misunderstandings, they facilitated communication. When problems stem from personal difficulties, they provided individual support. The training systems Vikings created for conflict prevention also ensured communities possess skills necessary for maintaining peace through proactive intervention rather than reactive punishment. They taught communication techniques, mediation procedures, and counseling methods that enabled ordinary community members to address problems before they required formal legal intervention. Their documentation of successful prevention techniques also enabled continuous improvement of conflict resolution capabilities across their territories. Viking communities shared information about effective intervention methods, recorded successful mediation outcomes, and analyzed failed prevention attempts to refine their approaches continuously. The psychological sophistication of Viking conflict prevention becomes apparent through their understanding that most disputes arose from unmet needs rather than inherent evil. Their prevention strategies focused on identifying and addressing legitimate concerns that drove problematic behavior rather than simply suppressing symptoms through punishment or intimidation. Their recognition of individual differences also enabled personalized intervention approaches that matched support methods to personality types and specific circumstances. They understood that shy individuals needed different encouragement than aggressive personalities, that practical people required concrete solutions while emotional people needed psychological support. The cultural integration of conflict prevention also made peace-building a community responsibility rather than specialized professional service. Every Viking adult understood basic mediation techniques, could recognize warning signs of developing problems, and felt obligated to intervene constructively when they observed brewing conflicts. Their seasonal approaches to conflict prevention also demonstrated understanding that social tensions followed predictable patterns related to weather, work cycles, and community activities. They increased prevention efforts during high-stress periods like harvest time or winter isolation, when conflicts were most likely to develop. The economic dimensions of Viking conflict prevention also revealed appreciation for material causes of social problems that modern development experts recognize as essential for sustainable peace. They addressed property disputes, resource allocation conflicts, and economic inequalities that might otherwise fuel ongoing tensions between community members. Their educational components also ensured younger generations learned conflict prevention skills that maintained community peace across generational transitions. Children learned negotiation techniques, empathy development, and problem-solving methods that prepared them to contribute to community harmony as adults. The Viking approach to justice education also created informed populations capable of participating effectively in legal processes when prevention efforts failed and formal proceedings became necessary. They taught legal procedures, evidence evaluation, and decision-making methods that enabled fair and effective community justice. Their witness training also ensured reliable testimony during legal proceedings while protecting witnesses from retaliation or intimidation. Viking communities understood that effective justice required accurate information from people willing to speak truthfully about events they observed. The victim support systems Vikings developed also addressed trauma and loss in ways that promoted healing while seeking justice for wrongs committed. Their victim services included practical assistance, emotional support, and advocacy during legal proceedings that helped injured parties recover while pursuing appropriate remedies. Their offender rehabilitation also recognized that lasting justice required changing behavior patterns rather than simply imposing penalties. Viking rehabilitation programs included skill training, counseling services, and community service opportunities that helped offenders develop capabilities and relationships that reduced likelihood of repeat offenses. These 100 revelations about Viking civilization shatter every misconception we held about these remarkable people. Far from being simple barbarians, they were master innovators whose democratic assemblies, commercial networks, and technological breakthroughs laid the groundwork for our modern world. Their genetic legacy flows through millions of descendants. Their legal principles shaped contemporary justice systems, and their exploration spirit continues driving human discovery. The Vikings didn't just raid and conquer. They created ideas, institutions, and innovations that transformed medieval Europe and continue influencing civilization today. Understanding their true achievements reminds us that human creativity can overcome any obstacle when communities commit to excellence, cooperation, and pushing beyond apparent limitations.